Cool. Hey everybody, let me know if you can hear me in the chat. If you can turn your cameras on, that would be amazing. I'm just going to let a few people in the room here. I want to say a massive thank you to you, particularly if you are here having bought a ticket. If you're already part of Copy Tapas, obviously you had your tickets for free, but I am stoked to have so many new faces joining us. Thank you so much. Um, so I'm going to hit record my side. Don't have a fright if you've got headphones on. But what I want you to get out of today essentially is some reassurance, really, that this sort of like constant grind of sell super hard on social media doesn't need to happen. And it is often less effective when you do approach it like that. Thank you, Lindsay, for letting me know. Let me know in the chat, you guys, if you have been feeling a little bit underwhelmed with social media lately, because probably for the first time, certainly in the last sort of 6 years, I'm hearing coaches who ordinarily would love social media, normally love to connect and love to give, and like they show up with mega energy, feeling a bit. They don't really want to spend too much time online. They're a bit sick of it. They feel like they're getting ghosted more than usual. And I am hearing, I wish I didn't have to be on social media. I'm hearing if I didn't have to be here for my work, I would choose not to be here. Let me know if you that's sort of where you're at right now. If you're loving social media, tell me that as well. I want to know all of the sort of emotional barometer of the group. Please do let me know. Um, if it's safe, you guys, to turn your cameras on, I would love to see your smiling faces. Although I have done webinars internally before, this is my first ever public webinar. So if you have bought a ticket, I'm beyond gassed for you to be here. Thank you so much. I'm mega touched. I've prepared something for you today, right? Because what I wanted to do basically was talk you through what's been going on in my business and the patterns that I've been able to notice, because this is absolutely crazy, this pattern I noticed. Okay, cool. So here is, can you guys all see my screen okay? Let me open up the chat so I can, if you've got questions, I can be on top of them. Let me know if this is working because I'm using a presentation thing that I haven't used before. This is Gamma. I gave it written notes and it turned the whole thing into a presentation. I'm no designer, so I was stoked with that. Okay, so essentially the way this works is, let's see if I can pin myself. There we go. Spotlight. Nice. Okay, sweet. So the way this works, I thought the best way to approach selling on the internet for years and years was to show up with your most expensive offer and to sell the hell out of that all of the time. I'd worked with mentors who had told me, like, you need to sell every single day. You need to make 3 to 5 offers a day. Let me know in the chat if that's something that you guys have heard anywhere. At least 1 offer a day, you need to sell, 3 offers a day, and that is doable. But it is also quite heavy as an approach if you have got quite a small audience. I've got quite a small audience. So that level of intensive selling felt pretty full on, to be honest. And what I noticed was it didn't seem to matter. So here's the whole crux of like the reassurance I want you to get. It didn't matter what I was offering. People seemed to buy whatever the hell they were going to buy anyway. And actually, this webinar is a fantastic example of that, because I was obviously pushing tickets for this webinar for a good maybe month. And we sold some tickets and we've brought some people in, and that's awesome. I'm excited to help you guys. But what was weird about this is I had people who didn't buy webinar tickets buy other services and products instead. So I started to think, I wonder if people are going to buy whatever they're going to buy. And this is tuned into the timing element of it. So it matters less what you talk about and more sort of less what you promote and more that you are just there, familiar, and in a position to talk to them about what they wanted to buy anyway. And this ties into timing because there are certain times of the year where your market is just in a buying mood, right? And I think the danger in the fitness industry in particular is that we have this expectation that January's going to be busy, September's going to be busy, February's going to be quiet, December's going to be quiet, the summer months generally are quiet. And in my experience, that's not accurate, right? And maybe accurate for some markets, but as a rule, January tends not to be as busy as we hope. The summer tends not to be as quiet as we would like. Let me know in the chat if that's been your experience. If the thing that you're expecting to happen in your business, in your marketing, in your sales process hasn't quite worked out the way you expected it to work out. Or if you're one of the lucky few that has the exact map in mind and your people seem to follow it. Let me know which camp you're in. Off plan or on plan? Because for my market, it will be different from what your market is, right? And the whole point of today, yeah, and they never bloody do what you want them to do, right? So the whole plan for today is to get you into the spirit of you don't have to sell all the time. When you know when your market wants to buy, that's when you should be selling, not when all of the other coaches are selling, just when you need to be selling. And that rhythm exists, and it is quite reassuring that it's there, right? So that's what we're going to go through today. And I've got screenshots, and I'm going to talk you through. It's going to be dead easy. So here's what happened. I had a few core beliefs that were running like software in my business. I believed things like people don't ascend anymore. People don't buy low ticket offers and go on to buy higher ticket offers. I believed that not every offer was worth staying and I should cut them. Actually, Copy Tapas was one of the things I was thinking of cutting, and thank God I didn't because it's ended up being a fantastic service. And I've met loads of new cool coaches through it. I also believed that when months were busy, that was because of my effort. And if months were quiet, that was my lack of effort. I'm going to pause here and I'd like you guys to interact with me, please, because I think there is a lot of blame, particularly coming maybe from mentors or from ourselves, when things are slow, that this must be something that you're doing wrong. Let me know if that's something that you felt or has been explicitly said to you in the time you've been coaching online. Give me a bit of an idea if that's been your experience. Yeah, good. You're not on your own. I've definitely felt that as well. Million percent. So Aidan's brought up something really interesting here, right? The work you did 3 months before the results you're getting today. So what we're seeing is this lag effect in the market of the stuff you were doing months ago. I'm seeing a lag effect at the moment of about 4 weeks in my own business. And it's such a peculiar thing, right? Because that makes it so hard to see the patterns in real time because what you're doing is having a downstream effect and you're not seeing it happening in real time. It's hard to know what are the timings because you're a lag effect, your behavior is a lag effect, and then the buying behaviors are influenced by all sorts of things. So, in short, it's hard to know what's going on in your business. And so you end up treating every month the exact same. And it actually makes a lot of sense that you would do that because you think to yourself, well, as long as I don't change anything, as long as I don't rock the boat and fuck up the variables essentially, then the chips will fall where they may, right? But by the end of this training, I'm going to show you how you can find your hotspots in your business. And I'm super excited about this because this data existed for 5 years in my business. And I was just too afraid of my numbers to go and find them. The second thing I want you to get is an understanding of why some months feel easy and other months feel so hard, regardless of your effort, and sometimes despite your best efforts. And by the end of it, you'll have an idea of how to take the content calendars that you've got as part of Copy Tapas and actually know when you should be selling. This is actually in direct response to Maurice's question in the group. So I'm glad you're here live, Maurice, because this is literally like, when should I be structuring my sales push? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, there are 3 things that I think coaches believe, and I think they're all lies. The first thing is that we should always be selling because all months are created equally. And if you are seeing a slow month, that's a skill issue. You just don't want it enough. Double down on DMs. Push, 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 bro. It's time to sell. That is something that we've all heard. The second thing that I think is a total mistake is that hard selling is necessary. And when your audience are resistant, we should create urgency or scarcity to force them into action now. The third thing is that when it's quiet, I should double down, sell harder, and force them to act now. But the reality of doing that is if you are urgent about something that people aren't going to buy anyway, they just tune you out. So urgency only works if they were going to buy anyway. It doesn't work if people aren't ready to buy. So the reason timing is so important is because when you can deploy urgency for people who are almost ready to buy, it's super effective. But if you try to be urgent with people who don't care, they just ignore you. So when I did this in my own business, I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty of it because obviously my business has got a lot of different price points. It's got a lot of different tiers. It spans anything from sort of like £99 right the way up to sort of £5,000 a month, right? So there's all kinds of variations, different value ladders, different levels of contact to me. So I don't want to give you too much of like what questions I was asking and the sorts of analysis I was doing. But one of the things that really stood out was that we were taking people who had bought something inexpensive and they were buying something more expensive, so this upsell rate, that was happening 14% of the time. And I never had any systems, I never had any offers or anything, right? Industry standard for this is 20%, but I wasn't even asking people. So people were getting to 14% by themselves. The reason that matters is because when people are ready to buy, they will come looking for the next solution. When you serve a big enough market, you can see this happening. But because I didn't have any systems in place, we were falling short. If I could get that number from 14% to 20%, that's worth £54,000 a year on the basis of the one upsell that I actually had in place. So imagine that across the whole of your business. This is worth real money. Okay, so this is the reason why I wanted to give you this today, is that this is a really high level strategic way to deal with the data in your business. And I know data seems kind of boring and not sexy at all. And if I'm honest, a little bit scary as well. But I promise, if I can deal with the data, you can as well. I'm borderline innumerate. I can barely count. I could hardly tell you my phone number, frankly. So, for example, we used to believe that people needed to outgrow us and that the ascension model was broken. That's not true. I believed that was true and it was not true. In fact, if I'm honest, I had beliefs running about this business that were wrong on literally almost every single thing I believed was wrong when I looked at the data. So I was miles off, frankly. So here's the thing I want to give you. If you're taking screenshots, if you're taking photos, this is the screen with like the first bit of the real information on, okay? So grab this one if you're going to do it. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to open up your Stripe account. And I recommend you do this on a computer rather than on your phone because it's really hard to do it on your phone. And you're going to go to transactions and export. In fact, if you're on a computer right now, do it now. That export takes a couple of minutes, so do that early. And then you're going to take the whole thing it gives you and give it to ChatGPT. You're literally just going to drop the CSV file into an AI. It hasn't got to be ChatGPT. It could be... definitely do not love a spreadsheet these days. It could be Claude, whatever you want, right? But I did mine in chat. And what you do from there is you tell me a story about these numbers. Talk to me like I'm 5. Try not to use numbers. Try to use just words. That helped me a lot. Maybe you're more numerate than I am and you don't need to be quite so prescriptive. I was kind of afraid of it, to be honest. But that's a good jumping off point, right? Tell me what's happening. So my first question was literally, tell me what's happening from January to February. It's as basic as that. Tell me what's happened. And it was telling me things like this many people left in January and this many people came on board. So you lost money here and you made money here. It's that basic. But that was just the start, okay? That sounds like, why would this even be useful? I'm not kidding you. There has been nothing I've done in my business, literally for the last 5 years that has given me clarity like this. Maurice, I did this right the way back. I'm going to show you a screenshot in a second to show you what to select on Stripe, but I would say click on from all time. Now, going forward, I'd probably do this every quarter or every year, but because I'd never done it before, I went right the way back to the start. Because that was quite a lot of data, it did take a while, pal, so just be a little bit patient. My Stripe said, this might take a couple of minutes. Do you want us to email you? So, like, you probably have a similar number of transactions to me, so just, like, be patient with it, and it'll give you a CSV file. Once you've dumped it all into your AI, you're going to ask it stuff that you want to know. Now, for this training, the thing I think is mega useful is questions like, when are my audience buying most? When do my audience tend not to buy? Now, I made a little list of questions here for you that may be helpful. I'm just going to give you the link in the chat. You can make a copy of that. Bang that in the chat. And you guys can share that. Obviously, as you become a bit more confident using the AI and interacting with the data and shit like that, you'll probably come up with more questions that you want to ask on your own. If I show you my questions, you'll notice it started off really basic, like how long do clients tend to stay with me? But as it got more complex, I was able to ask much more sophisticated questions. Don't feel like you need to jump ahead to anything more sophisticated in the beginning. If all you ask it is, when do people tend to buy from me and when do people tend not to buy from me, that's a win, okay? I made some suggestions, but of course you ask whatever you want to ask. And what I noticed about this was in the beginning, I was only really able to ask quite basic questions. And then as I became a bit more comfortable with the numbers and I was able to ask better questions, I was able to go deeper with the data. What I noticed was the value really was in interacting with the question and answer and having the conversation. And don't be afraid to say, I don't get what you mean. Explain it to me again. Explain it to me easier. Make it easier for me to understand. Go step by step and help me to understand it. And I probably had this conversation over around about a 24-hour period. And I noticed that in the beginning, my questions were things like, which services are creating most of our profit? Like, where's most of our money coming from? And then by the end, I was like, what is profitability per hour per member of staff? Like, I was able to get way more granular about it. And I felt dead clever. But that took about 24 hours of like interrogating the data. I think for all of you guys on the call, the thing I would really encourage you to do is to treat this like an exercise in just getting familiar with looking at the data and not being afraid of it. Even if you end up only with a tiny amount of insight, interrogating the data seems to have been the thing that I was missing, right? So I wasn't doing this at all. And we've made, 7 figures in this business and I just don't fucking look at it. So that made me feel really stupid in a really good way. The final step is to identify those periods of your 12-month calendar where your market are naturally buying stuff from you. So everybody thinks the fitness industry is going to be juicy come January, but in practice, I think it's juicier towards the end of February, March, I suspect. A lot of people will think, I'm going to do most of my selling in the final week of the month, but they work with business owners who aren't waiting for payday to make an investment in their health. They just pull that money out of the business and expense it. So there's no need to wait until the end of the month, for example. Similarly, I have a guy who is working with teachers at the moment. He is trying to do a lot of selling around sort of Easter time. That's not going to work. It's not going to perform because teachers are up to their eyeballs in exams. They haven't got any capacity to think about their own health at the moment. Leave it until July. Little insights like that, right? And that's going to be different for all of you. This is super different depending on your niche. This is so anchored to your niche, I can't tell you. Now, of course, the annoying thing about this is that to some degree, it is influenced by when you've made offers in the past. But there's nothing you can do about that. The only thing you can do is look at the trends that exist, and you're able to do this as soon as you've got basically 1 year's worth of data. I had more like 5 or 6 on Stripe. So I was able to get a lot of information from this. The second thing I want you to get from this is when the cold spots are, the choke points, right? So no matter how hard I'm selling, when do people just ignore me? Now, if you have got the capacity to do this, it could be that you track this in Trello, maybe you've got a VA, maybe you track in a spreadsheet for your DMs and stuff. You can give it that as well. But I only did this with Stripe data. What I really wished I had done actually was use my bank information, but I was afraid to upload my bank information to AI basically. That didn't seem very safe, so I just did it with Stripe. And when you're in a cold spot or a choke point, you can be building systems and assets and growing your audience. And when you're in a hot spot, you should be doing nothing but selling your tits off. So that's the idea. You've got these two sort of polar experiences in your calendar where you're building or you're selling. And the rest of the time, you're posting to build authority. Now, I'm going to come back to that idea in a second, but here's what it looks like in Stripe. I'm going to skip that one. I've shown you those. I'm going to come back to that. So here's how you do the Stripe bit. So Maurice, this is for you. You go to your transactions thing on Stripe on the, what's that, left-hand side of the page. You click that button first. Just up here, pal. And then after that, it takes you to this page where you can export your data. And you get this little pop-up. And I clicked on all, but if you were a bit more organized and you did this on a more regular basis, you could probably pick something else. This was the first time I'd done it, so I just exported everything. And then this little purple button down here to export it. Those were the steps. It was literally that easy. It gave me a CSV file. I want to go back. And I was expecting to see this sort of thing, but I actually didn't at all. So if you're looking to screenshot some questions, I did write them in the document for you, but here's a couple more. I think these are really clear. These are the sorts of things that I think most coaches probably want to start with. Because what this does is it takes the data that already exists and it allows you to make a projection. So let's say, for example, Aidan's currently at, I don't know, let's say 20 grand a month, and he wants to be at 100 grand a month. So based on these actual revenue patterns, the realistic way to scale that business would be, it could tell you this type of program, this number of clients, this sort of price point. And then you might think, well, I know I can't take more than 100 clients. I'm going to cap out. So through interrogating the data, you may end up thinking, I need to put my prices up. I need to hire somebody. I need to, do any number of things. But this is so valuable. Being willing to ask good questions and being willing to ask probably stupid, shitty questions in the beginning while you find your feet in this interrogation process. Before I go any further, does anybody have any questions that you're going to put in the chat about the questions that you could ask? I'll make time at the end for Q&A if you want to come back to this, if you want to just have a think. But let me know if you've got any questions, just stick them in the chat for me. Cool. Okay, I'm going to come back to Q&A at the end then, because we're almost there. This is actually dead simple. Okay. From there, once you got your, this is when my people are buying, this is when my people are largely checked out and disengaged, you probably have got a gut feeling of when that's happening throughout the year already. When you find your hotspots, and I recommend you find hotspots a minimum of twice a year and a maximum of 4 times a year. So that could be first half of the year, second half of the year, or it could be once a quarter. These hotspots are when you do your applications content. The lukewarm periods, where you talk about this is my way of doing things and this is how I think about it and this is the connection and value piece on social media, that's going to be your authority content. And then when they are switched off, checked out, cold, non-responsive, ghosting you, that's when you can build stuff. So you can either build your audience or you can build out the systems and the lead magnets and the assets and stuff for the next time you've got a hotspot. Now, in practice, this corresponds exactly to your Copy Tapas content. So for those of you who have bought tickets and who've maybe not yet seen this in Discord, you will be going into Copy Tapas, you'll be heading into Picky Bits, and you can scan right up and find February's Copy Tapas right here. If you haven't been able to find that, let me know, and I will direct you to it. But essentially, oops, the audience content is for when your market is cold. Your authority content is for when your market is most of the time. The bulk of your posting should be authority content. And when your market is red hot and buy-in, head to applications. Let me pause here and just make sure that makes sense for everybody. Because it seems like what we were doing historically was like, let's just wait until the last week of the year and make offers. Last week of the month, rather, and just make offers. So we're assuming people have been paid. We're assuming people are still paying attention. And that's not a bad way of doing it. But this is custom to you. This allows you to have a whole 12-month map of this is when I should be selling, regardless of what everybody else is doing. Let me know if that approach, if you think that will be more effective for you. Because we are almost here with this. And then we'll have some time for some Q&A. Okay. If you are writing your next steps down, the first thing you're going to do is export your Stripe data. The next thing you're going to do is just literally take that file. It's a CSV file. Don't look at it. It'll give you a spreadsheet and you will catch AIDS. Just give it directly to your AI. Don't even click on it. And then you're going to ask it questions. Some of the most important questions are, when are my people buying? When are my people not buying? And from there, you've got your 12-month calendar. You should aim for a minimum of 2 buying windows per year and a maximum of 4 buying windows per year. That means launch windows, right? Balls to the wall, all efforts are going on selling. You might be thinking, I want to sell more often than that. That's totally cool. What I recommend for more frequent selling is that you sell in private. So that's happening in DMs, it's happening in close friends, it's happening on your WhatsApp. People come to you, can they still buy? Of course they can. But you are only doing a public sales launch, a big push that's very energy intense for you once or twice, 2 to 4 times a year. Wow. I'm going to come back to that. That's fantastic, Jamie. Well done. I'm going to click on that in a second and really look closely at it. So you guys already know you're all already in Copy Tapas. But if anybody's watching the replay on this, you've already got these monthly content systems. Audience content is for when your market is very quiet and slow and not really responsive. Your authority content is the bulk of your year. Most of your posting is this. And your applications content is when they are juicy and ready to buy. You've already got it. So, you know, if you're a webinar attendee, you've had this for free. You will be charged £99 a month after this month if you want to stay on. You can cancel anytime, you don't have to stay. But once you've got your rhythm mapped, the content makes it easy to fill in the gaps. One final slide. The reassurance. You do not have to sell hard all the time. You do not have to be on every single day. Now that you know when your hotspots and choke points are, you can put all your efforts into the hotspots and pull right back when you know your market is disengaged. I'm never selling to teachers in July. Okay, I'm just not going to do it. When you have looked through this data, you will notice that your accountant is there to help you to be smart with money after you've had it. Your mentor is there to help you to build out those systems. But this business rhythm that already exists in your business, you've already got it, that data exists, is to help you to earn more in the first place by making intelligent offers that are carefully timed. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share with you. Has everybody got all the links they should have here? Has everybody got Copy Tapas? They've got access to Discord. They've got the starter questions and stuff. And then I'm going to see if anybody's got any questions for me. Because I know, like, for me, dealing with numbers, dealing with sort of analysis, all feels a bit serious and a bit scary and hard, right? So I'm going to go to Jamie first because she's absolutely flying on this. January is juicy for Jamie. September is quiet for Jamie. Have you got parents, Jamie? Is that your? Do you want to unmute? Oh, maybe. Oh, I gotta click on. Oh, fuck, I don't know.
There you go, I'm on.
We're off. Okay. Jamie, tell me about your market. Who do you work with?
Triathletes.
Oh, interesting. So I would imagine lots of your buying and selling is going to be maybe 16 weeks ahead of the race calendar. Is that right?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, I didn't think January was that good, to be honest. But having said that, the last January I've just had hasn't been the best. It was all right, but I always thought it was like February, March, April. But actually, they don't. I mean, they're all right. They're solid months. But June has surprised me, as did November and December. September up, August, September generally quiet. That sort of makes sense because people have either done their race or they're having a bit of a rest. But yeah, it's interesting.
It's a flatter distribution than I would expect.
Hmm.
I would imagine, like, how. So when you train for triathlon, how far out do you start prepping?
Oh, I mean, so I do two. I've got two different services. So for some people,
Ah,
I just do nutrition, to help them with their nutrition. For other people, it's like a full package, training and nutrition. So if it's nutrition, it can be like 3, 4 months out.
mm.
If you're working with somebody on their training and their nutrition, it can be a longer term thing, sort of 9 months, 10 months maybe. Um, but yeah, it's so I guess most people buy in spring, or I thought they did. But yeah, it's interesting to just get my head around it. Actually, I've also got a bit of an international market, so I don't just work with British people. So there's some Americans, Australians, a little bit of that going on. So obviously they're on a slightly different, potentially different season, which could skew it a little bit.
I tell you what, Jamie, right? When I was doing this, I uttered a sentence that I never in my life thought I would say, and it was, "Wow, I really wish I had better data hygiene." I was like, why is this just such a mishmash? Like, do you know when you're in Stripe and you've just named stuff and somebody is in your DMs and like, oh, just fire me over a link and you've just fired off any old shit and you don't really like it doesn't really correspond to anything and you're like, I can't remember what that was now. And you start exporting it and you've got like 6 years worth of winging it data basically. And you're like, oh God. I never realized how important it would be to have like this sounds so stupid, but like good naming protocols or like some sort of like consistent process going on behind the scenes. And I felt like such a square. I said it to my team. I was like, we've got terrible naming protocols here. It was my sister, basically. And she's like, what are you talking about? Who even are you right now? I was just so frustrated because I was looking for like product IDs and stuff to try to map. I ended up having to map the price of the thing I'd sold to try to get a clear picture. So if you've got more than one service, this is worth everybody knowing. If you've got more than one service, it can be difficult to separate that data out. So one of your first questions, Jamie, might be organize all of the products that you can see listed in this data so that we can analyze individual product lines.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that, I'm in the same boat as you on that one because I had a whole bunch of different types of services and I never realized how important it would be to like have good naming conventions, but we live and learn. But that was my mistake as well in the beginning. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like what you were saying there about selling at certain times makes perfect sense. I've always sort of been aware of that, there should be a period of harder sell, a period of sort of pulling back a little bit. But I think that takes quite confidence in
mm,
in the numbers because if you worry that if you don't try and sell, you might miss people, and then they slip through the net, and therefore you'll have a bad month. If you know that there's going to be that rhythm, and actually, well, it's dangerous, isn't it? Actually, because if you know there's going to be a rhythm, you might adhere to it and be like, oh, actually, there's no point in trying then. So you don't want to be like that too much, but at the same time, it's okay to understand that some months are going to be better than others or worse, I guess.
yeah, totally. And I think this isn't an excuse to like I'm not going to show up today. This is more about um sort of squashing the panic that I think we feel when we're like, but I'm showing up and I'm making offers and I'm selling really hard and people are non-responsive. But I think I'm doing everything right. I think what I was looking for from this process was a bit of reassurance that like you can have some influence, show up, talk about the same sorts of things, be consistent, be predictable about the sort. Like if I turned up and I start being like, do you know what would be fun is if everybody was really fucking cruel to each other. Wouldn't, like that's a total 180. Like obviously don't do that. Show up and talk about the same sorts of messages. But
Yeah.
if you're like, wow, I'm sweating because I've had no inquiries this week. Why is that? Oh, it's because I'm in a lull. It's no big deal. And then you
Yeah.
can pull back and like for example, one of the things we tend to get hired for is coaches who want us to run launches for them, right? This isn't a pitch. But they'll turn up, they'll hire us for a launch, and then they'll be like, sweet, I'm gonna go on holiday now for 2 weeks. And I'm like, why on earth have we timed this right before? Like, you're exhausted. So why are we doing a launch right when you need to take a break? It is so energy intensive because when the launch works and you get a ton of sales calls in, you're not going to be able to show up and do them properly. So I think it can help. For me, what I'm going to use this for is in part to plan campaigns, that's true. But I'm also going to use it to like try to take some time off. Aiden, hold me accountable to that because I feel like I absolutely like I always talk a big game with this. I'm just like, what would it be like to take a week off? I just don't do that. So, planning your downtime when your business is quiet anyway feels quite smart, right? Anyway, amazing data. Well done, Jamie. Like phenomenal to get a graph back. Look at you. Um, guys, if there's any other questions, bang and ask in the chat. And I think I have to unmute you. I don't know. I think I've done something. Yeah. Why are you taking on your phone, bro? Just bang a little ask in the chat, and I think I've got to unmute you my side because I don't know. I've changed some bloody setting my side. Don't be intimidated by the tech skill that I'm bringing to the call. Okay. If there's nothing, if you guys are solid and you've had what you need, Maurice, killer. Let me see here, pal. Unmute. Did it work? Yes.
Yeah. I just have a question because I used to sell a high ticket,
Hmm.
and then when I say the last year, I've been doing a lot more recurring payments. So I
Hmm.
think that might be fluctuating my data a wee bit.
Yeah, I would
So
imagine it does. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
So
so
what
listen,
would you
if you've had a big change in how you
yeah.
structure your offers, the first question is going to be, let's get some analysis on when we've got a one-off payment versus a recurring payment. One of the most useful questions that were in that doc, Maurice, that you might want to try was like, what percentage of people pay on a subscription basis versus like a one-off lump sum payment? I have a client in my business who only takes, she's a coach and she hires us to write her copy. She only takes upfront payments. So her numbers are insane. She'll run a webinar like this and she'll do like 200 grand in a week. And you're just like, insane numbers. Her monthly recurring is zero. And I realized, I don't know if I should tell you guys this, what happens on the webinar stays on the webinar, right? But I was charging her a subscription fee and she has got no recurring revenue. And then it occurred to me, so she's like, I need to pause for a bit. I'm like, why would you pause? We've just made you so much money. Like, it makes no sense to me. So I was panicking. Have we done something wrong? Have we upset you? We've got this long-term relationship with her. She's obviously making astronomically more money than we are. I'm like, what have we done? And it occurred to me, why don't I just charge her in a lump? She's got lumpy cash flow. Her income is lumpy. So her expenses, when they are staggered and subscription based, that's probably stressing her right out. If I said to her, you can employ me for the year, it's going to cost you 50 grand, and I'm going to bill you right after the webinar. That'd probably be easy. That'd be an easy yes. Ironically, it would probably be an easier yes than 5 grand, 5 grand, 5 grand, 5 grand. Because that's an ongoing stressor. And I was like, when I realized that this week, or last week rather, I was like, fuck, that's probably pretty stupid of me. Because I don't have any lumpy money in my business. It all tends to come in through subscriptions. I wasn't thinking about cash flow like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 1,000,000%. Like, and she makes shitloads of money from the stuff we do, so that should be an easy yes. And it occurred to me, like, why didn't I just ask her to pay up front for the year? And I'm like, because I don't want lumpy cash, but she does. So that would have been a much smarter way of doing it. So like, I could have used that data, and I'm still learning. Like, I got that wrong last week, but I'm still learning how to use this data now. So I hope that's useful for you, mate. Like, does that sort of thing make a difference. Like ask the sort of like the what you'll find is there's probably big rock questions like let's sort out the different products. Let's figure out where all the lumps are coming from versus the subscriptions. It could be worthwhile to ask it, Maurice, when people pay for upfront, what time of the year do they like to do that? So that could be if you've got a like a business type person in your market, maybe they're all paying out of I want to offset this against my tax. Everybody makes that purchase the first week of April. Oh, that's funny. That's interesting. Why is that?
So just kind of make up more upfront offers around that time of the year.
Potentially, if that's what the data suggests that you should do.
Okay.
But keep in mind that if you do invite lumpy cash, don't be scared then when the market's like, hey, I don't have 10 grand to give you today. And you're like, oh, cool. Well, I've got this monthly offer instead if you prefer. And it could be that you're just switching into a more fluid style of cash flow. Rather than thinking shit, my market's not buying, maybe they just don't want to buy like that right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, that's spot on. Thank
Well
you.
done, mate. That's a great question. Has anybody else got any questions or have you guys had what you need? I'm gassed. This has been my first one. This has been all right, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to give you like literally 10 seconds to ask any questions and I'm going to bounce. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming along to the live. If you bought a ticket, double thank you. Okay, so here's my thinking. The next one is going to be on. So I did something in a client's business recently. He was so he had an applications funnel that he was running. His people were getting ghosted 50% of the time after the people had filled out the application form. I'm like, why are we getting ghosted so much in DMs? So they'd fill out the application form. The team would send the message, hey, you filled out the application form. Why aren't you coming to the call? 50% of his market were doing that. So obviously that's a lot of money. I found a way to get us out of requests and into his calendar way more often. I never get ghosted. Literally never. Like, I think I've got a 99% reply rate, maybe more. So I'm going to do a micro training on that. It's going to be like maybe a 10-minute training because it's like literally, I just told him how to do it on a Zoom. So I'm just going to come and tell you guys how to do that. That's what I was thinking. And I'm going to make that one free because what I want to learn about this process is basically how does the quality of applicant change in a paid call versus a free call. So I'm going to experiment. That's what I'm trying to learn about at the moment. Definitely don't have all the answers. And I'll share with you what I know. So I may do that in March or I may do that in April because my goal is one per quarter minimum. So hold me to it. All right, amazing, you guys. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much. If you have questions and it doesn't quite come to you yet and you want to like play with the process and you want to like chat a few questions and you want to come back to me and ask me some stuff, you've got access to the questions I ask. You've got access to the questions that maybe you want to try and start with. I will be in Discord tomorrow. Have a play around. And I'd love to know how you get on with it. Those of you who have already started, big well done. Thank you so much for coming live. I really appreciate you guys. See you soon. Bye.